Welcome to Washington State University's Extension Training on Public Notification and Outreach. This training is designed to help WSU Extension better understand required practices to informing the public and the necessity to engage all communities. This training was created by Dr. Kenitra Keeney, WSU's Extension County Relations Coordinator. Washington State University is an equal opportunity provider and employer. In this training, you will learn what is public notification or equal opportunity notification requirements? What are general outreach activities? What are targeted outreach activities? What is the difference between outreach and academic services? What is public notification or equal opportunity notification requirements? Public notifications are designed to let the people we serve understand their right to services. This includes the non-discrimination statement, how to request reasonable accommodations, and the right to request information in multiple languages. When posting the non-discrimination statement, it should, to the extent possible, be in its entirety. This includes protected classes. This statement must be on all print and non-print materials. The goal of the non-discrimination statement is to inform the service population of their rights. Therefore, the statement should be written large enough to be read. However, when the materials are too small at a minimum, we must include, "This institution is an equal opportunity provider." I provided an example at the beginning of this training. I stated, WSU is an equal opportunity provider and employer. Next, we will talk about reasonable accommodations. The Injustice for All posters are another requirement by the United States Department of Agriculture. This AD 475A poster should be posted wherever services are provided. This poster typically comes in English and Spanish, but can be ordered in multiple languages. The And Justice for All poster also notifies individuals how to file a complaint if discrimination is observed or experienced. WSU Extension receives federal funds, which means by law, we are legally responsible for providing a reasonable accommodation free of charge when requested. This training is focused on our public notification responsibility. Please visit the Accessibility and Reasonable Accommodations training for a more in-depth understanding about reasonable accommodations. Part of our public notification efforts include providing information to our service population on how to request services and who to contact. An example would be, if you need a reasonable accommodation to participate in this event, please contact Insert the Name at Insert Contact Information no later than enter date 2 weeks from the event. This statement should be placed on all public-facing documents or communication that announce events and activities, since we want our services to be open and welcoming to all. Next, we will talk about language access public notification. WSU Extension receives federal funds, which means by law, we are legally responsible for providing free language access upon request. Like the reasonable accommodation request, there should be a public notification letting our service population know their rights to free language services. For example, language services, such as interpretation and translation of vital information, will be provided free of charge to limited English proficient individuals upon request. Typically, you would combine the reasonable accommodation and language service statement together. This statement would be on public-facing document and communications, which announce services or events. What is public outreach? It is advertising, marketing, communication, or collaborative activities that are intended to raise awareness of, recruit new participants to, or generally publicize agricultural research, education, or extension program activities. Outreach is telling the public we have services and how to participate in services and activities. It isn't providing the services. Each program will need to decide when they are providing outreach and when they are providing academic services. Because WSU doesn't discriminate, we need to make sure we are participating in general and targeted outreach. General outreach efforts need to be effective in reaching everyone, and targeted outreach efforts need to be made to underrepresented groups or historically underserved populations. General outreach is the announcement of available services, activities, and events made to the general community. When conducting general outreach, a variety of methods should be used to maximize WSU's ability to reach a wide range of populations. Some considerations include using a variety of methods to advertise, such as direct mailing, social media, radio, flyers, and email, to name a few. The reasoning is if you are only using social media unintentionally, people who don't have access to the internet, who don't know how to use social media, individuals where English isn't their dominant language, or people who don't know where to go to get information are excluded. Targeted outreach is focused advertising to underserved population. For example, you want to reach more populations who are identified as underserved. You would want to reach out to community partners or organizations which uniquely serve those populations to make them aware of the services and events you provide. Finally, to assess your reach, you also want to employ a variety of methods. This includes participant data or feedback collected in a survey, feedback from the frontline staff, getting perspectives from various stakeholders, and web page analytics, to name a few options. Targeted outreach is an intentional effort to notify underserved population about WSU Extension's events and services. For example, you are collecting participant data for a specific event. You compare your participant data to the U.S. Census data and realize your program isn't reaching all the available populations. As a result, you conduct a barrier analysis to better understand why certain populations are not in attendance. You would identify the needs of that population, work with community partners, and provide specific language to let people know the services available. Targeted outreach is important because it provides service providers the opportunity to better assess the needs of the community they are serving. For example, are there specific language needs, religious values, social economic status, transportation barriers, to name a few? Targeted outreach also requires specific messaging, which resonates with the community you are trying to serve. It also creates an opportunity to build trust with a variety of communities. The USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture require us to document our targeted outreach efforts to show in good faith we are trying to reach underserved populations. To satisfy this requirement, we must at a minimum capture the date the outreach was conducted, the nature of the outreach, location of outreach, and who conducted the outreach, and the target audience and approximate number of individuals reached. In conclusion, targeted outreach is meant to demonstrate to USDA, reinforce with our subrecipients, and signal to our service population all are welcome to WSU Extension services. The high-level difference between outreach activities and academic activities are based on the type of data you collect. As discussed earlier in this training, outreach is the advertising of services available. There is general outreach, which doesn't require data to be collected. For example, if there is an information table handing out flyers and brochures, collecting data on everyone would be difficult. There is targeted outreach, which requires basic documentation to illustrate WSU Extension's intentional efforts to identify and reach populations not served. Identifying the populations missing from academic services are usually identified during a parity analysis. Academic services require the collection and reporting of demographic data. As stated above, the service providers should collect demographic data and compare the data against data such as the U.S. Census. USDA/NEFA requires federal recipients to collect race, ethnicity, and sex data at a minimum. Once the minimum data has been collected, other data can be collected. There are more resources which go into detail about race, ethnicity, and sex demographic collection and reporting. The key to determining what is an outreach activity and what is an academic activity usually lies with leadership at the county and tribal location and/or the program level. For example, 4-H may have an informational session at the fairgrounds and decide to label this as outreach, whereas Master Gardeners might host a clinic which provides academic services as well as outreach. In this case, Master Gardeners would want to collect demographics. In conclusion, the takeaway is WSU Extension doesn't discriminate. We can provide targeted outreach to notify Washingtonians about our services and encourage all populations to attend. However, we can't limit access to academic programs based on certain characteristics. In this training, we discuss the importance of the non-discrimination statement, which lets people know they will receive services without discrimination. Their right to requests reasonable accommodations and language access free of charge, and how to file a complaint. This statement should be used in its entire length, when possible. But at a minimum, we need to put WSU is an equal opportunity provider and employer, and should be displayed where services are provided, and Justice for All poster should be placed where activities are held. We also covered public outreach. This is the way we notify our communities about our services. We should participate in both general and targeted outreach, use a variety of methods, and evaluate the effectiveness of our outreach. Remember to document your targeted outreach efforts. Finally, general outreach doesn't require data collection or reporting. Academic activities require the collection of race, ethnicity, and sex demographic data at a minimum. Once this data is collected, a parity analysis is conducted. If the populations receiving the services aren't in parity with the available population, targeted outreach should be conducted to those underrepresented populations. Thank you for taking this training and taking the step towards making WSU Extension welcoming for everyone.